foreign companies. We are organizing the business mission, the participation of the Polish companies in different events abroad. We have the pleasure to cooperate with Botswana from 2015. Last year we have organized the business visit of Polish companies to Botswana, and we still we still have the contacts. So this is the first virtual business meeting with Botswana, because we haven't possibility to do the real events. So we start with this event, and we hope that it will be only the beginning of the future cooperation.
Hello, my name is Agnieszka Salamończyk. I am Deputy Director of Foreign Relations Department, responsible for relations with African country. With us, we have Mr. Janusz Wiśniewski, Vice President of the Polish Chamber of Commerce, President of our first and last for the moment Polish trade mission to Botswana.
Yeah, okay, I was called out, so let me introduce myself. Thanks, Ela. Janusz Wiśniewski, Vice President of Polish Chamber of Commerce, which is the more important. I'm the member of the Botswana Fan Club. And that was unique opportunity for me to go there. Last year, we brought several dozen of Polish entrepreneurs and companies there, including Boryszew Group. Piotr Lisiecki, the president of the group, is in the delegation today. That is why Mikołaj Budzanowski introduced the group already. And I'm that one to make the closing remarks. So I have kind request towards all of you just to make it as clear as possible that due to my age, I could make a notes and then summarize. Have a nice time with us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ella, I'm going to start the meeting. I see your Ambassador Wilinski start the meeting. I see that it is already teamed.
Yes, it's
so
time.
I'm going to start, and we also have a good number of participants already. That it's my time now to introduce myself. My name is Malefoko Morakedi. I'm with the Botswana Investment and Trade Center. I'm going to be your moderator together with the Honorable Ambassador for this morning's virtual business meeting. Some housekeeping rules. May I please kindly request everyone to mute their mics. This will allow participants to fully make their remarks, make their presentations without any disturbance, and all the delegates would be able to hear everybody properly. So may I please kindly request that everybody mute their mics. Please note that this meeting will be recorded with streaming online. So if someone does not agree to share their image or their voice, I kindly request that you turn off your camera and your microphone. This is due to the General Data Protection Regulations, which is a law on data protection and privacy in the EU. So please note that we're streaming online, and this meeting is recorded. So if you don't want that to happen, kindly mute your mics as well as turn off your camera. Please make use of the chat section to write down any questions or comments that you may have. There's a chat section on this Zoom platform, so make use of that. And your questions and comments will be responded to at the question and answer section. There will also be an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have as you are participating this morning, and that will be taken at a later stage after all our panelists have made their presentations. As the Ambassador Wilinski was saying earlier, we're getting used to this new normal of virtual meeting. So there may be an overload on bandwidth So please bear with us if there's any snags or delays. Our technicians are here with us and they will take care of the problem as soon as possible. And muting your mics and turning off your cameras will certainly assist in us being able to be audible and to be able to participate with the program this morning. Now, to start the program, as you are aware, ladies and gentlemen, development and growth of the agriculture and health sector remains a key aspect of our ongoing economic diversification efforts. And this is really, especially when you look at the key learnings that we have had as we are experiencing this COVID-19 pandemic. So we really appreciate your spending time with us this morning to engage with each other, both Poland and Botswana, through this virtual meeting. We have a very high-level panel that will speak to us about these sectors, as well as investment opportunities in the two countries. And I will share their profiles before I call on them to make their remarks. Now, our first speaker is Ambassador Jan Wilinski. Ambassador Wilinski is a specialist in sub-Saharan Africa. He's also a former diplomat working in the Polish embassies in Kenya, Liberia, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. And just before we started this meeting, he was telling me how he's been to Botswana several times. So he's also a friend of Botswana, not just of those countries that I mentioned. He spent over 20 years in diplomatic missions in Africa. He was a representative of Poland in the working group of the European Union for Africa. He is currently actively participates in the activities of the Polish Chamber of Commerce, diplomatic advisor to the president, preparing economic missions to Africa, and conducting business seminars for representatives of Polish companies interested in economic cooperation with Africa. I would like to invite the ambassador and diplomatic advisor to the president of the Polish Chamber of Commerce, Ambassador Jan Wilinski, to give welcome remarks. Ambassador.
Dear friends, I am extremely honored to welcome you during this virtual business forum between Botswanian and Polish entrepreneurs. First, allow me to greet cordially Madam Ambassador Masire Mwamba, who will deliver a special opening speech, as other speakers, Mr. Olebile from the Botswana office in London, Director Molobe, and first of all, Mrs. Malebogo, who will introduce all these people to us. Although it is a great pleasure, I would like just to take your time and say a few words on Botswana. Why Botswana? Why we are meeting and we are devoting our time to this particularly beautiful country. As probably you are aware, Botswana is well defined between the Kalahari Desert and Okavango Delta. This territory is a home for many animals, birds, and species. As I already said, I traveled several times to Botswana, and every time I found a new attraction. That it is one of the fastest growing safari destinations. Additionally, I would like to put a stress on Botswana conservation program. Right now, the particular campaign presently in force is called Silencing the Guns. Botswana is very keen about protection of the animals and keep them for a future generation. At the moment of independence in 1966, Botswana was one of the poorest countries in the world, with a domestic gross product per capita about $70 US. Right now, country belongs to the upper middle class countries and is particularly considered as a model in economic development for other African countries in the area. It is due to the effort of Botswanian government, which put in place particularly interesting strategy, developing environment which is stable, clean, and friendly fiscal for foreign investment. I would like also to stress that priority of the government presently are particularly two sectors, agriculture and health. Why these two sectors? Because still in agriculture, we have, about 70% of the Botswanian population lives in villages and is engaged in agriculture, but it produces about, if I am right, 50% of the foodstuff needed for a country. So net, Botswana is importer of a food into the country. The health sector is served by two partners. One it is the government and another private sector. In Botswana, it is particularly interesting because due to the high level HIV/AIDS, all patients are served by the government clinics. They are in a system and government is providing them with all drugs free of charge. I don't know another country in the area which provide this type of system. I think that many of you will try interesting and fascinating to go into B2B business into Botswana, and I am welcoming your remarks. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador Wilinski. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next presenter will make the keynote address, and really her address will set the scene together with you, Ambassador, on this morning's deliberations. Her Excellency Masakwa Masira Mwamba. Excellency Masira Mwamba was appointed as Botswana's second ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany. Hello? There's a bit of disturbance. Can you please mute your mic? Thank you. As I was saying, Her Excellency Masakwa Masira Mwamba was appointed as Botswana's second ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany on the 18th of December 2018. Ambassador Masira Mwamba is an international civil servant with over 30 years of senior level experience in the field of business, development, and multilateral diplomacy. She served as the Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth for a period of 6 years up to 2014. And may I also just say that having worked with her, we know that Her Excellency Masira Mwamba has taken our interest as Botswana Investment and Trade Center, and we know that our interests are going to be well covered with her being in Germany. Before I ask her to make her keynote address, I'd also just like to announce that she's not just the ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany, she's also ambassador of Botswana accredited to Poland. May I request Ma Masira Mwamba to make her keynote address. Thank you, Excellency. Your Excellency.
Am I audible now?
Yes, now you're audible, ma'am.
Thank you. Oh, so all I was doing was rehearsing my opening remarks. Good morning, and thank you very much for the warm introduction.
We can hear you now.
Can I just remind the Polish Chamber of Commerce that they do have the ability to mute all our mics. And if they do that, they can just allow for the speaker's mic to be on and to mute all the other mics, because that would help Malibuho and all of us to be able to hear what your presentations are. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to speak with you this morning, albeit briefly, because I know that over 70 of us are signed up for this meeting, and we have a lot to discuss and a lot of issues to go over. So I shall keep my remarks very, very briefly. As has already been stated, this is the first virtual trade and investment forum that has been organized by the Botswana Investment Trade Center to engage both Botswana business and the Polish business. We note from the interest that has been expressed that we have a number of representatives that are coming from the trade facilitation in different sectors and different regions of Poland and Botswana. And we also have a number of interested parties to secure partnerships, to secure distributorships, and to enhance the trade relationship between Poland and Botswana. Let me start with the trade element first and say, for those that have expressed interest in trading with Botswana and in having a presence in Botswana, you will find that Botswana has a very open and competitive process. We are looking for goods and services that are high quality, that are properly priced, and that are well serviced. You will also find that securing local partners in Botswana is a recommended way of doing business, and something that we encourage you to engage given the distances between Poland and Botswana. We offer Botswana as a regional hub. Botswana, by virtue of its geographic position, by virtue of its governance standards and its interconnectivity within the region, offers you an opportunity to be able to reach out into the regional economies based out of Botswana. So even as you consider partners and doing business in Botswana, we very much encourage you to think big and to think of the region and to see how you can use Botswana as your entry point into the region in these two sectors in particular, the sectors of agriculture and the sectors of health. As has already been stated, these two sectors have also now been brought to the fore by the current COVID pandemic status that we are all in at the moment. It has shown us that food production, efficiency, and sufficiency is extremely important. So for those of you who are on this call who can support the country in this endeavor, this is what we are looking for at this stage. In the health sector, we are looking at medical services and how we can continue to support our people and ensure that the livelihoods are secured. I wanted to just reflect briefly on Poland itself. First of all, noting our shared values of democracy and economic development. Poland has recently had an election, a presidential election, in the midst of the COVID pandemic, demonstrating its commitment to democracy and to the rule of law. And it did so with extremely high participation levels, and we would like to congratulate the government of Poland on this success. Poland also has been highlighted by the FDI locations as one of the top, in fact, the top destination for foreign direct investment in the first quarter of this year. Again, a success in the midst of COVID and in the midst of the challenges that we are dealing with. And I believe amongst the shared values that we have with Commonwealth, with the shared values that we have with Poland, it is this commitment to democracy and economic development that brings us to the table right now. And also when we look at how Poland has responded to the COVID crisis, ensuring that levels were low in a region where the COVID crisis was very severely felt. Once again, Poland has been highlighted as a model in handling and responding to the crisis. And we look to you to support us as we engage and as we explore other kinds of medical facilities and medical facilitation that you might be able to support us with. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Botswana is committed to enhancing and ensuring that the relationships with Poland yield positive results for the people of our respective countries. We have engagement that has, starting at the presidential level, His Excellency President Mokgweetsi Masisi, the President of Botswana, visited Poland, and in that meeting also had an opportunity to meet with businesses and to give them his personal assurance of the country's interest in engaging and facilitating business from Poland. We have also had a very good working relationship with the Polish Chamber of Commerce. This is not the first time that we meet, let alone the first time that we sit around the table, and we have found them to be a very good partner for us, and we encourage our own business community to engage them and for us to continue to support them going forward. We have also demonstrated engaged leadership from Botswana. We have a Polish company that has been working with our Botswana International Trade Center, and even in the midst of this COVID crisis, was not only able to be accredited as an investment company, but also to engage in a business call with our Minister of Agriculture and our Ministry of Agriculture, once again showing the engaged leadership and facilitation that is available to you once you have decided that you would like to participate and engage in Botswana. Ladies and gentlemen, as the ambassador said at the beginning of the meeting, Botswana is also a beautiful site, a site that we use to promote tourism. Is very popular as a tourism destination. And it is with pride that we would like to invite you to consider visiting Botswana, both for business and from a tourism point of view. Still related to tourism, we are in a situation where we have had a very disturbing, I would say, but a matter that is being addressed in the spirit of conservation and openness, and that is the untimely demise of elephants in large numbers by a disease that we are not sure whether it's a disease or what is happening, but I just wanted to reassure all of you who may have become aware or who may then become aware that this is a matter that is being taken at the very highest level, and we are engaging the international community because, as you may know, Botswana is the custodian of over a third of the world's elephant population, and therefore it's a matter that we are responding to and responding to effectively. And we also are doing that on behalf of the global community, and we have great support in trying to find out how we can address that. The final point that I would also like to make is that Botswana is making strides in terms of the COVID response. as has already been highlighted in very many publications and in many reports, that the COVID status is a fluctuating status. And therefore, it is important that as we continue to keep safe, as we continue to do all that we can to secure and to ensure that the disease is contained, we are aware that it is through international cooperation, it is through working together, it is through effective testing and taking appropriate measures that we can overcome. And so I think this meeting feeds very well into this level of interdependence and collective association that will allow us not only to overcome the COVID, but also to ensure that as we restart our economies, as we start to work together to look for opportunities, we will be doing so in an environment that allows us to create win-win opportunities all around. I thank you and look forward to your contributions and welcome your interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for that keynote address. Food production and food security is very important, especially with what we have learned through this COVID-19 pandemic, as well as our ability for us to take care of our citizens' well-being. And certainly this virtual meeting is really aimed, as you had said, Your Excellency, at seeing how we can cooperate and collaborate between our two countries, Botswana and Poland. I think earlier Ambassador Wilinski did state that we have an MOU between the Polish Chamber of Commerce and Botswana Investment and Trade Center. And certainly through this MOU, that is how this virtual business meeting came about, and is a start of a very good relationship, I must say. Our next presenter is going to be Mrs. Danuta Soeka Andrzejewska. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Ms. Danuta holds the position of counselor within the Department of International Trade under the Ministry of Economic Development. Her portfolio includes offering support to Polish entrepreneurs operating in international markets and follow up on issues of bilateral trade and economic cooperation abroad. So having been fully welcomed by Ambassador Wilinski and the tone set for this meeting by Ambassador Masiro Mwamba, Mrs. Danuta, please share with us your presentation this morning.
Yes,
and how your portfolio can assist the Polish entrepreneurs as well as the Botswana business people.
Yes, hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
But you cannot see me. Something happened to my camera. Okay, because I prepared a presentation, so I will share it with you right now. Is it visible?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Share screen. Let's all share. Share. And now?
Now we can see something.
Yeah.
Yes, just do the full presentation screen. Yeah, there you go, perfect.
Yes, now it's okay.
Yes.
So let me start from passing great thank you to the Polish Chamber of Commerce, who gave us a great possibility to get acquainted with Botswana people and economy and possibilities to cooperate with that market. It's really a great meeting. And what to say? Let me start quickly with my presentation, not to lose any time. So at first, I would like to say a few words about Poland. So Poland, you can see, it's located in the heart of Europe, we can say. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Europe. with the GDP growth higher than the EU average. We are the largest country in Central Eastern Europe and the 6th largest economy in the EU. Our key strengths, what's going on? Our key strengths include a big size and capacity of our market with almost 40 million potential consumers, raising value of Polish foreign trade with more than 500 billion USD in 2019. Very favorable climate for foreign investors with foreign FDI in Poland that exceeded 200 billion USD for the end of 2018. We are also proud of young and well-educated society with about 500 universities and high schools, 2 million students and 100,000 professors and other scholars. Just to present you some basic information about Poland, I think there is no need to read them, all of them. You can keep it with my presentation after the end of the meeting. So let's move to another slide. Our main economic indicators, they were quite good for the past year. We had 4% GDP growth in 2019, which was one of the best performances in Europe. Unemployment rate has dropped to 5.2% last year, and inflation rate was quite low at the level of 2.3%. Foreign direct investment in Poland, they were close to 229 billion USD by the end of 2018. And there was also an increased amount of Polish direct investment abroad, which was close to 25 billion. Unfortunately, due to COVID crisis, this year the results will not be so positive. As we know, as we already estimate, our GDP in the second quarter of this year declined to, noted a strong decline of more than 10%. And as a consequence, our National Bank of Poland expects a decline in GDP in the entire 2020 by 5.4%. What about the unemployment rate? The unemployment in June continued to rise, but much slower than in April and May. This means that the registered unemployment rate in June in Poland was around 6%, but the latest European Commission forecast indicates an increase in unemployment rate in Poland to 7.5% in the whole 2020. As regards inflation rate, in the second quarter of this year, inflation decreased in the second quarter significantly. So the National Bank of Poland indicates that the inflation this year will reach the level of around 3.5%. So as we mentioned, Poland is a very attractive place for foreign direct investment. You can see on the slide that these are the results for the end of 2018, the recent results. So we hope, as we can see, the major foreign investors in Poland, they were mostly European countries, Netherlands, the biggest investor, Germany, Luxembourg, France, Spain. You have the numbers given beside the names of the countries. And the most attractive investment opportunities we can find in such sectors as automotive, electronics, aerospace, business services, R&D, IT, renewable energy, domestic appliance market, biotechnology, and of course, food sector, which is our strong branch in Poland. As regards foreign trade, we have already final data for 2020. It was our foreign trade was on a constant increase in the recent years. So for the last year, we had like 238 billion euro in export and 237 billion euro in imports. It was a record level starting from 2005. EU remains the main partner of Poland, both in exports and in imports. In 2019, the EU share in Polish exports was around 80%, and in Polish imports close to 60%. Main products exported from Poland were mechanical and electrical machines and equipment, means of transport and their components, base metal products, and different products, mostly furniture, food and beverages. In import, our major products included also mechanical and electrical equipment, means of transport and their components, base metal products, chemicals, and mineral products. And the main partners in trade are also indicated on the right side. In 2016, Polish government implemented the Responsible Development Plan with 5 main pillars. For us, one of them, and most important for us, is foreign expansion. What's most important, the African market was chosen at that time as one of our most promising directions. So today, after 5 years of, after the past 5 years of implementation of the program, we can see the positive developments in our mutual business contacts with Africa. The value of bilateral trade visibly increased. The volume of trade Poland-Africa grew by nearly 40% in the past 5 years. In this, Polish exports grew by nearly 13% and imports by more than 80%. And focus now on Poland-Africa trade relations. So when talking, so opportunities for Africa last year was the 23rd commercial partner. The volume of our trade was comparable with the volume of our trade with Japan or Korea, a single country of Japan or a single country of Korea. So you can see that it's not much. So total turnover was 6.5 billion USD, which was a 25% growth compared to 2018. In this, Polish exports 3.2 billion, 18% growth, and Polish imports 3.3 billion, 33% growth. The share of Africa in total Polish trade is only around 1.2%, which is nothing compared to the size and possibilities that the African continent offers. So we have still much room for improvement. Opportunities for cooperation exist in many areas, like shipbuilding, railway and transport infrastructure, steel, chemical industry, cosmetics, pharmaceutical sector, automotive, agricultural equipment, mining machinery, IT, medical equipment, agri-food industry. And when talking about Africa, we must be aware that this is a very deeply diversified continent. Therefore, each country should be approached on an individual basis. In this regard, the economic cooperation with the countries of North Africa, which account for about 45% of our exports, is very different from the cooperation with the countries of Sub-Saharan Africa. The share of Central, East and South Africa in our exports was 34%, and with West Africa the lowest, around 21%. Among the Sub-Saharan countries, the key position is taken by South Africa, which accounts for nearly 21/4 of all our exports to Africa. And among our major commercial export partners in Africa, there are as you see, South Africa on the first place, and then Arab states from the North Africa. Unfortunately, the position of Botswana is not too high. It's 47th as regards last year. Our commodity structure of exports to Africa consisted of mechanical and electrical appliances, which constituted a 20% share in all our exports, means of transport with the share of 15%, ready-made food products 12.5%, and animal products around 9%. The commodity structure of Polish imports from Africa, they were mineral products, mainly fuels in the first place, with a share of 25%, means of transport and their components, like 16% share, textiles 11%, and agricultural products 9%. Now let's talk about Botswana and Poland trade relations. They are mainly focused around trade exchange till now, which is not very high. It's merely 1.5 million US dollars in our exports, and almost nothing. I mean, 24,000 US dollars in our imports last year. Among the top export products, there are electric transformers, textiles, machinery, paper, cardboard, and food products. And import products, most of them, they were last year about 21,000 US dollars. They were personal property of persons transferring from Botswana to other countries. So it was already mentioned, but in case of Botswana, we can see the biggest prospects and promising in the sectors for cooperation in the following branches: machines for agriculture and food processing, health sector, housing construction, infrastructure construction like rails, roads, etc., and energy including construction and modernization of energy infrastructure, lines, power plants, etc. Take a few minutes about the priority sectors in Poland, which we selected a few years ago with both export and image-related potential, as we want to build a strong and widely recognized Polish economy brand. And they include, among others, let me talk only about choose the sectors of highest potential for cooperation with Botswana, which are marked in bold. They include medical equipment sector, IT, ICT sector, biotechnology and pharmaceutical sector, healthcare services sector, including medical tourism, and Polish food specialties sector, agri-food industry. So as regards the medical equipment sector, Poland is a highly appreciated partner, as we are a competitive manufacturer of top quality instruments and devices used in medicine, healthcare, surgery, dentistry, or veterinary medicine. Polish companies export medical equipment mostly to the EU. It's around 65% of share. My data are not the recent ones, but for example, in 2017, the value of export of medical equipment was close to 2 billion euro. Then we have IT and ICT sector. Their exports 2 years ago were more than 10 billion euro, and most of them were sold to the EU countries. The share of EU was around 85%. And among the specialties that Poland is famous of, there are custom software, production of games, BPO and ITO services, internet technologies, software R&D, and hardware R&D. Coming to healthcare, pharmaceuticals, medical tourism sector, we have nearly 400,000 foreign patients visiting Poland every year up to 2019. The potential of health tourism lies in domestic specialist medical services, such as cardiology, oncology, orthopedics, ophthalmology, or endoscopic and plastic surgeries. As for Polish pharmaceutical market, it continues to grow. It is the largest market in Central Europe and the 6th largest in the European Union. Pharmaceutical industry in Poland generates around 7.3 billion euro, which is 1.3% of the Polish GDP. And the last sectors mentioned in the presentation should be agri-food sector. Agri-food sector with our export exceeding 20 billion euro, of which 81% goes to the European Union markets. Among the strengths of the Polish agricultural sector, we can mention that the Polish food is natural, healthy, and innovative. We are proud of high level of knowledge among sector employees. We can offer competitive prices, modern processing base, guaranteeing high quality of products. We see the increasing efficiency and productivity of labor and advanced quality control procedures, implementation of new quality systems. That's the last thing what I want to do, to thank you so much once again for inviting me and giving me a chance to share a discussion with such distinguished participants. For the future contacts, I recommend the contact in red, which is my colleague specializing in sub-Saharan Africa countries, Ilona Pytlarska. Thank you very much for your attention once again, and let's wait for the discussion. Thank you. So. So yes. Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Nuta. I can hear you.
I was afraid I destroyed something with your meeting, but hopefully not.
No, I don't. I think we're still here. Thank you very much for your elaborate presentation, really giving the delegates an overview of the Polish market and where the investment and areas of collaborations are. We are running behind time, so I'm going to call immediately the next presenter, which is Re Kilutisitse Olibile, the Chief Executive Officer of Botswana Investment and Trade Center. Re Olibile.
Thank you, Malevoko, for the introduction. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I will also be taking you through a quick presentation on Botswana, just like the previous speaker, so that we can appreciate. But one thing I wanted to emphasize is that there is so much in terms of opportunities that we can share as Botswana, which we may not be able to share in the short space of time available. But in the question and answer session, the interactive session, please feel free to engage us even beyond the primary sectors of health and agriculture that we have put forward today. So I'm just going to go to the start of my presentation. Okay. This is a presentation from Botswana Investment and Trade Center. We are an agency of the government of Botswana operating under the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry with a mandate to promote and facilitate investment, both FDI and domestic investment. So we are the people to directly talk to when you have an investment interest in Botswana, so that any of your needs that you may need to deploy your investment can be well catered for. The presentation for this morning will follow a very short outline, just exposing you to Botswana generally, but also speaking specifically to the opportunities in agriculture as well as the health sector. But one thing I want to appreciate right at the beginning is the frequency of engagement between Botswana and the Polish Chamber of Commerce. We have seen our president, as Her Excellency, our ambassador said earlier, the president of Botswana visiting Poland in recent times to give his direct assurance for investment to come to Botswana. We've also seen a number of delegations from Poland come in to explore, and I want to share that there is actually one particular interest that we are already facilitating in the health sector. So for the frequency of engagement, we are quite confident that something positive in investment and trade will come out of this interaction. On the slide, you will see the main macroeconomic statistics of Botswana. You will see that in terms of population, we are not too blessed. It's only 2.3 million people. But what we always emphasize is the tab right next to the population, where you see that we are bordering various countries of Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Namibia to the west. So if you take that and look at the map of Africa on the right side of the slide, you will see that Botswana is right at the heartland of the regional bloc SADC. So that is why, in terms of putting ourselves forward for investment, we say we are the gateway to SADC, meaning that you can ignore the small population because the laws of Botswana are such that when you locate within our country, you can effectively trade with SADC countries and beyond. So I think that's one key attribute that we want to always put forward. We share there our GDP figures. GDP per capita stands at $7,961 US dollars, as noted by the World Bank in 2019, which places us as upper middle income country, as was earlier on said, look at the level of inflation, very well managed and within the objective range of the Bank of Botswana, which is our central bank. It's always managed between 3 to 6%, but you can see that as at June, we recorded very low inflation at 0.9%. So that translates into very low interest rates or rates of borrowing. As you can see, our bank rate standing at 4.25% and prime lending going at 5.75. And then the rest of the information there gives you the detail of our total merchandise exports and imports in any particular year. This next slide seems, is aimed at sharing with you that just like every other country in the world, we are impacted by the COVID pandemic. I think it was earlier on said that Botswana has done relatively well in terms of managing, the level of infections within the country. I think the discovered positive cases in terms of number within the country now do not exceed 1,000. But because this is a global pandemic and we are a part of the global economy, we are equally affected in that our GDP is equally expected to shrink, but with positive hopes and forecasts to rebound by 3.9% in 2021. Our mainstay of the economy, as you may already know, is the mining sector, which is also, significantly projected to contract because of the curtailed global markets where our minerals get to sell. And you can see that this is a sector that contributes about 15% to our GDP. The other sector currently in Botswana that is significantly impacted is the trade, hotels and restaurant sector, which is the tourism sector, expected to contract by 32% because of the challenges of travel, global travel. Tourists cannot effectively visit, but we do expect that if we wait it out and solutions are found to cure or prevent COVID, then we believe this sector will come back. This is a sector that contributes 19% to GDP, and then the same level of effect in our manufacturing sector. So this was just to emphasize that we are equally affected, but we are keeping our positive stance in making sure that we engage in the period of challenge. We engage as extensively as we can our global investor audiences so that once the coast clears, we can then receive them for investment as they deploy on the ground in Botswana. Now, this is the investment climate or the desirable attributes that we always put forward when promoting the country. Botswana has enjoyed sustained periods of economic growth, which was recorded at 4.5% in 2018, 4.2% in 2019, and before COVID, we were actually projected to grow in 2020 by 4.8%, but now the figures have since been revised. We are known for our prudent macroeconomic management, as noted by the Economic Intelligence Unit in their July 2020 report. This is one report that gives an independent attestation of how Botswana really is managing to the envy of many of particularly the African countries in that regard. So it's quite a report to look at. We have a very strong balance sheet position with a net external creditor position. That means in an overall analysis, we have a lot of money with other countries than they have with us. So that I think says a lot in terms of our level of responsible borrowing, in that we tend to be a saving and investing country as opposed to amassing a lot of debt. Our sound legal system and respect for the rule of law. Botswana follows the Roman Dutch system of law with acceptance of precedents of common law and other related international laws. So whenever there is a case, we have a very effective judicial system that will operate almost at the European standards in respecting the rule of law. Political stability. Our ambassador has just highlighted the incident-free elections that Poland has hosted during the COVID era. Similarly, in Botswana, we host elections every 5 years, incident-free, and that's what we are known about. Labor market stability, our level of literacy rate is currently at 87.7%, and you will see where it came from around 1981. Somebody said before that when Botswana attained independence in 1966, we were regarded as the poorest country probably in the world. And you will see that even in terms of literacy rate, we were very low at 31% in 1981, but government has since invested quite extensively in making sure that people are educated. So when you come and operate in Botswana, you'll find that you have, very relatively skilled labor to employ. They may not be plug and play. You will fine-tune them to your processes, but the literacy rate comparatively is very high. Look at our investment grade sovereign credit ratings, which are A standard by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's, even up to their 2020 reports. We know that they keep on revising with the advent of COVID, but in Africa, we are probably the highest, which says a lot about companies being able to raise capital from a stable and credible base like Botswana. And then the last is our ease of doing business ranking by the World Bank, recorded in 2019. This slide shares with you the corruption perceptions. It's from the Corruption Perception Index by Transparency International. You will see, I think for the longest period of time, Botswana has been the least corrupt country in Africa. We were recently surpassed in terms of scoring by the Seychelles. So the yellowish bars you see at the top are the top ranked countries in Africa, which is the Seychelles, Botswana, and then the Cape Verde. So on mainland Africa, Botswana is the least perceived to be corrupt country by Transparency International. And then the other scores are just, showing some of the lowest ranking countries within the continent. So as we said, because of the small population, when you come and invest in Botswana, we have devised strategies to effectively link our priority sectors with regional value chains. So you must look at the population of Botswana, the opportunities in Botswana, but also assess how you can launch from Botswana to serve the countries that are surrounding. The total population of the SADC region will be in the region of 300 million. So that is the market size that you can expect to access if you conduct your business in or from Botswana. This slide basically gives you the gist of the bilateral, multilateral trade agreements that Botswana is a party to. We are a member of SADC, which is the Southern African Development Community. As I said, preferential market access to the more than 293 million consumers in the region. There is within SADC what we call SACU, which is a customs union, one of the oldest customs unions in Africa, which gives you duty-free, quota-free market access to the 61 million consumers in the countries of Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, and Swaziland. Under SACU, there is an arrangement with the EFTA countries, which are the free trade countries within the EU, and includes countries like Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. So producing from Botswana assures you duty-free, quota-free market access to these European countries as well. We also have under SACU an arrangement with the Mercosur countries. These are countries in the South American continent, countries of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So producing from Botswana, you are guaranteed that your goods will enter this market almost hassle-free. As a country, we are a beneficiary under AGOA, the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act by the United States of America. So they have given us multiple product lines through which we can enter the US market seamlessly. We have a specialized arrangement with Zimbabwe. We are a member of the tripartite, which is the East African Commission, SADC, and COMESA. we are now a signatory to the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, as well as the SADC EU EPA, through which I think we would have, unlimited, unhindered access to the Polish market. So this slide basically crystallizes the fact that while the Botswana market may be small, we've put in arrangements in place to effectively serve almost every market around the world. Now, we're going into trade between Botswana and Poland, and we do note that, in terms of the figures, the trade has been very small. And you will see in terms of the trade balance is quite negative to Botswana, which means there is very little that we are pushing in the way of Poland, while there is a bit of significance in what Poland brings in. But I think as the two countries interacting now, we should acknowledge that there is more that we can do to make sure that we increase trade between ourselves. We have looked at the ITC reports, the export potential map, and the slide here shows products that are available in Botswana, which can quite easily be exported into Poland. And the size of the bubble tends to represent the size of the opportunity. So you will see that for the auto industry, we are producing a very large number of ignition wiring sets, which predominantly we are producing for the South African OEMs. But because of the knowledge and experience that we've entrenched, there's still potential that we can even export these back to Poland. So if there are companies that are looking at operating in this sector, you will see that there's already, we export in excess of 50% of these harnesses to the industries and factories in South Africa. We also have a sizable presence of starter batteries. These are chloride batteries that are used in almost every vehicle in Southern Africa. So if you take this assessment, you will see that there are a good number of products that, as we cultivate trade and investment, we can look at for exporting out to Poland. Now, this next slide now looks at things on the flip side to say what is of high potential that Poland can export to Botswana. And you will see that the advent of medicaments comes in strongly there. You will see in my later slides that Botswana tends to import almost 100% of its medicines with a very high annual US dollar value. So I think in the lead will be the importation of medicaments. But after cultivating the market, we're looking at these companies coming to produce actually in Botswana, because you will see that the demand is very high in Botswana before we talk about the regional export market. So this is a slide to assess. In your spare time, we will share these slides to see what you can come in and produce, which is in high demand in Botswana. Now, these are some of the priority investment sectors that we can put forward, particularly in commercial agriculture. There is the project at the top, which is the Zambezi Integrated Agro-Commercial, which is the construction of a pipeline from the Chobe Zambezi rivers to serve an already demarcated special economic zone in the northern part of the country, a place called Pandamatenga. This project has been put forward by government for public-private partnership. So if anybody is interested in this, we can share more details for you to start conversations with the relevant office that drives PPP. Now, we also share the numbers for the horticulture sector. You will see that there is a large amount of importation, particularly of fresh fruits, mostly from South Africa, which accounts for 99.7% of the imports. But because of the similarity of the climates of the two countries, we believe a lot of this production can be transferred into Botswana as we build self-sustenance and take it from there to now export into other countries that will be in need. You will see there that we are putting forward ostrich production. We do have a number of enablers in the ostrich value chain. This is a sector that we have tried out in the past. It didn't work well because I don't think we proportionated operations across the value chain. We've learned our lessons, and we still believe it's a sector that we can recultivate back to life. There is actually at a place called Dibiti, there is a government-owned ostrich multiplication unit where they own a number of bears. I think it's in the region of 400, where they also have a hatching facility. And we are looking at an anchor sort of operator to come and take ownership of this facility and make sure that you facilitate and capacitate other small producers around the center. And farms have been demarcated for that purpose. We have, as part of the audience in this webinar, our colleagues from the Ministry of Agriculture, who will get to clarify later on when we discuss. Look at the dairy sector. Botswana is a large importer of milk every year. Look at the numbers for 2019. Our milk production stood at 8.08 million liters, whereas we imported 38.9 million liters. As a predominantly cattle farming community, as somebody said, most of our people live in the rural areas doing farming. Why is it that we are importing this much milk? And this is where we are inviting the entrenched skills in dairy production to come in and really patch up this or substitute this importation. You can see opportunities in fish production as well. Our consumption stands at around 4,000 tons of fish a year, but we are currently producing only 300 tons. So there is a huge opportunity to also come in. But the other enablers in the value chain, like your feed production, animal feed, and other things, are also quite a big opportunity to tap into. Turning to the health sector, Botswana's health sector is predominantly run by both government, the public health sector, as well as the private sector. The public healthcare services are almost free, as somebody said, the ambassador said in opening, whilst foreigners living in Botswana pay a highly subsidized price. I think it comes to about $4 per visit to a hospital. So it's almost free there as well. And then the private sector health facilities usually would service your middle class, people who believe they can get better service in these private facilities because of the specialist services that would come with it. So we have seen, particularly of late, as you will see, a lot of interest in private hospitals locating in Botswana, not only to serve the Botswana market, but to also invite patients from the region because of the central location. So in this slide, you will see, as we develop it further, that our healthcare is focused to actually increase by the numbers that we are picking from Fitch Solutions. It's focused to increase from 1.25 billion US dollars in 2019 to around 1.27 billion in US dollars in 2020. So that really says, as the demand rises, this is the opportunity that we are inviting our Polish counterparts to take advantage of. Even on the market, it's focused to grow from the compound annual growth rate of 8.7% in our local currency, or 5.7% in US dollar terms, and up to around 1.64 billion in 2024. So we believe that there are massive opportunities in the health sector. And I say particularly for specialized services, we already have one out of Poland that we are facilitating. We are open to receive more. These are the numbers of the health facilities that we would have in Botswana. This was just for your appreciation to see how much the government has already invested in health in terms of the level and size of hospitals, all the way to the spread across the country and the number of doctors and experts that are there on the ground. But be that as it may, there is still a lot of opportunity to still invest and deploy private facilities. These are the private facilities that are currently operating in the country. We have about 3 private hospitals that are operating in the capital city. That is the blue dot in the southern part of the country. A hospital called Bokamoso, another one called Sidileha, which recently opened, and another one called Gaborone Private Hospital, with those numbers of beds as you see them. And then there has been a lot of interest to also establish presence in the northern part of the country. 2 hospitals at the moment in Francistown, which is the second city of Botswana, that is the green dot, with those number of beds. And we are seeing a lot of engagement by global players in the health sector to deploy more facilities, particularly in the middle at a place called Palape, and towards the Okavango Delta at a place called Mau. Now, here we were just zeroing into now the specific opportunities in the health sector. Specialist kidney services are quite required. Specialized bone services quite required. The services for diabetes and spine quite required. Heart services. And as I said, there is one out of Poland that we're already facilitating in the cardiac surgery field. We are still expecting more to come as we engage in forums such as this to make sure that we can really go highly specialized, because the current situation in Botswana is such that most patients that would require detailed specialist services would end up being sent to particularly South Africa. We have an opportunity to actually host these at home and make sure that we become a true international health center for the region and the rest of Africa. You will see that even on the laboratory side, that is the orange bar at the bottom, most of our diagnostic and laboratory analysis would happen out in South Africa. So we believe that's one area that we can also strengthen locally to make sure that we don't only look at Botswana, we can also in-source samples from other countries surrounding. Now, here we wanted to provide a bit of figures in terms of what we import as a country. In terms of medicines, your pills and general medicaments, you will see that we are importing almost 100% of our pharmaceuticals, and the recorded imported value was $127.84 million in 2019. Similarly, on biomedical equipment, we've recorded a value of $72.49 million, which accounts to almost 100% of what is required in the country. So there is a huge opportunity to come in and substitute, because the demand is there before we talk about accessing export markets. Now, the last area that we wanted to touch on is medical tourism. I think His Excellency, the President of Botswana, put it very well in recent times that we are one of the rare places where you can come in, we give you all the enablers to pitch up a hospital where it will be so nice for somebody recovering to have probably a lion or an elephant walking outside the window. And we have a place in the Chobe called Kasani where we can immediately facilitate such interests so that you really facilitate international tourism and a healing center for patients who want to recover under such conditions. Here we are just sharing other opportunities that we promote as a country. We spoke a bit about auto components manufacturing and general manufacturing in general. You will see in my next slide that this is one sector that is incentivized in terms of tax. We are still promoting mining and resource beneficiation for the abundant resources that we have as a country, the energy sector, the services sector, transport and logistics as a central country in SADC becomes key, because even those that are producing in South Africa are increasingly finding it beneficial to warehouse and store their goods in a stable environment like Botswana, so that ultimately they can lift it near shore to be able to serve fast-growing markets up north in Zambia, DRC, and other countries. And then tourism and hospitality, there is still space, bearing the COVID impact, space for more players to also come in. And we actually have one sophisticated tourism operator out of Switzerland, whom we hosted recently, who will be doing a 5-star facility in a time to come. Now, in terms of double taxation avoidance agreements, we currently have 18 active and in force, and those are the countries. And I think to the Chamber of Commerce, I think we have a challenge there to immediately put Poland on the radar, because the level of engagement between the two countries really tells me that something positive will come out. And therefore, all the enablers to investors, like the double taxation avoidance treaties, have to be in place. So we will be engaging our relevant stakeholders to make sure that engagements can commence to ease the dual business operations between Botswana and Poland. This slide gives you Botswana's tax competitiveness in comparison to particularly other African countries. You will see that in the lead is Mauritius at 15%. Botswana comes in second in Africa at 22%. But we always say on the mainland Africa, which is quite convenient if you are trying to do business with Africa, we are the most efficient tax jurisdiction. And you will see that we are even below the global average of tax, which lands at 23.57%, and the African average lands at 27.5%. So at 22%, we are already so competitive. But be that as it may, you will see that Botswana has found it fitting to still incentivize some of the strategic sectors that we promote. Number one, if you are operating in manufacturing and you fit the definition of manufacturing, you are going to pay corporate tax at 15% instead of 22% that everybody else pays. There is also a sector called the International Financial Services Center, which is similar to what you would be au fait with in Dublin, Ireland, as an international financial services center adjacent to London. This is where we attract companies to come and locate some enabling structure in Botswana to be able to support operating subsidiaries in the region. And for that, you are incentivized at a corporate tax rate of 15%. And then we also have another dispensation called the Innovation Hub, which is a science and technology park, which is aimed at enhancing research, innovation, and invention of new products and methods of doing things. There again, if you operate under that dispensation, you pay corporate tax at 15%. Amongst us here are representatives of a region called Spedu. Spedu is a region on the far east of the map of Botswana. This is where, since the year 1976, we've had a sizable copper mine operating, but due to global commodity price challenges, we had that mine having to shut down and immediately rendered about 6,000 people unemployed. So government immediately intervened to designate that region as a special economic zone, and came up with very aggressive tax incentives that are ranging at 5% corporate tax for the first 5 years and then 10% thereafter. That is for the sectors of manufacturing, tourism, and agriculture. And then the other sectors, as I said, are taxed at a maximum corporate tax rate of 22%. Value-added tax in Botswana is 12%. The personal income tax, which is what you pay as an employee in Botswana, is driven by the escalating tax tables, but at a certain point, it will average at around 25% for amounts of salary in excess of a stipulated figure. So that is also quite competitive when you place it against other countries in the region. And then on the last bar, there is a provision in the Income Tax Act of Botswana where you can negotiate with the minister for further tax holidays of 5 to 10 years, depending on the strategic nature of your production. Say, for example, you want to bring in a tractor manufacturing plant, which we know Poland is quite good in. you can be facilitated to negotiate covered under the law for you to be given initial tax holidays in order to deploy your investment and pay tax at a later stage down the chain. I've spoken about the International Financial Services Center, for which government found it fitting to eliminate foreign exchange controls as far back as 1999. When you operate under this dispensation, you benefit from the ever-increasing list of double taxation avoidance treaties, and your corporate tax rate is 15%. When you operate under this framework, you are zero rated for VAT. That is, you comply with everything that is VAT, but at the end of the year, upon a positive assessment by the tax authority, all the VAT that you would have paid as an entity will be refunded back to you. And then you enjoy full exemption of withholding tax when you are externalizing to non-residents. That is, if you've provided services in Botswana and maybe you are paying out to your non-resident partners, stakeholders, funders, there will be no withholding, whereas everybody else so paying will suffer withholding at 7.5%. There is also full exemption from what we call capital gains tax if you are disposing of your shares in subsidiaries where you own more than 25%. So that's another key positive that makes this dispensation quite attractive. Now, in Botswana, you are fully exempted from customs duty when you are importing manufacturing and agricultural machinery and equipment. And then there is also another key and attractive dispensation in our tax laws where you are afforded up to 200% tax rebates for your investment in developing skills. That is when you come here and invest aggressively in training people. There is an institution where at the end of the year, you can be able to submit and claim up to 200% of those costs you would have incurred. Coming to a close, the institution that we represent, Botswana Investment and Trade Center, is the national one-stop service center for Botswana. So any interest in investment and trade will be effectively served at this institution. We work very closely with our embassies around the world. So the services that I'm articulating here, you can also get to initiate and access them from our embassy that side, which is why the ambassador is quite key to be a part of this forum. So company and business registration is what we facilitate. Opening of bank accounts. We facilitate entry visas, work and residence permits and exemptions, utility connections, trade and business license applications, income tax registration and clearance, including VAT, aftercare services, which is where we occasionally visit companies, every company in Botswana, to understand what their issues are, what we can resolve on their behalf with government, where they see opportunities to expand, we facilitate those so that you really have a comfortable stay in Botswana. We also facilitate incentives, industrial, commercial license, including land and factory shells. We also facilitate environmental impact assessment and any other license or clearance that you will need with the government and the general private sector. For that, I thank you and I look forward to the interactions in the question and answer session, even on issues that I wouldn't have specifically covered in the presentation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Tolibile. Thank you for that very comprehensive presentation, which really outlines the investment opportunities in Botswana and what it is as BITC we can assist and facilitate you with. I just thought maybe I could add on your last slide that as BITC, we're not just there for investments, but those services are there for the domestic investor as well. So our Botswana delegates and the Polish delegates, please feel free to make use of our Botswana one-stop shop when you've made your decision to invest in Botswana, or for those that are already in Botswana, if you're looking to be assisted in any way. We are running behind time, but I just wanted to assure delegates that we see your chats and your chats will be responded to. If you are unable to respond to any chat during this session, please know that we will continue dialoguing with you shortly thereafter this virtual meeting. I would like to call at this point Mr. Molobe from Business Botswana. Remolobe has over 26 years experience working in both government and the private sector with a special focus on promoting the private sector, and his portfolio at Business Botswana is that of policy advocacy. Remolobe, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Malebo, for that introduction. Let me also recognize the presence of Ambassador Jan Wilinski, who is the advisor to the Polish Chamber of Commerce. Also Ambassador Masire Mwamba, our ambassador in Germany. Also the presence of Mr. Janusz Wisniewski, who is the Vice President of the Polish Chamber of Commerce and who is going to do the opening remarks. With that, I would like to indicate that, of course, I come from Business Botswana, and I'll try as much as possible to be very brief, looking at the time, and just indicate to you that our role at Business Botswana is that of a Chamber of Commerce. So our main focus is to ensure that the environment under which you do business allows you to start and operate with ease. In other words, we always want to engage the authorities, government, to ensure that it is easy for you as investors to come and do business in Botswana. And as you all know, we are right in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and we have been forced to prepare a response to this pandemic and working with the government. And we made our inputs to that. And the focus of that intervention on our side was to help government to cushion the effects of the virus, because even Mr. Olibile has already pointed out that we expect a contraction in GDP this year. So we participated in that response so that we cushion the effects, and also to ensure that we are able to boost growth now going forward. And the other objective, of course, was to work with the authorities so that we build some resilience into the economy, so that we are able to absorb shocks such as these ones going forward. And we will also looked at strengthening both our macro and microeconomic frameworks. And the strategy has been adopted by government, and we expect it to be released to the public soon. And it is called the Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan. It's going to, I think it's going to Parliament. So with that, let me just turn to what I've been asked to talk about briefly. I've been asked to look at, to just share with you the business environment post-COVID-19, which I think is a very difficult subject, but I'll try again to be very brief. In terms of looking at the business environment, I would say that once again, we are working with authorities to ensure that we continue to make it easy for people to operate. And in the post-COVID-19 period, we are looking at two issues. The first one is with respect to our permit system, because in Botswana, whenever you want to do business, you must have a license or permits. So we are busy streamlining procedures for licensing to improve turnaround times, so that when you come from Poland, it is going to be easy for you to start your operations here in Botswana. And we have done away with a lot of requirements, bureaucracy. So I can assure you that when you come here, you'll find it easy for you to start, especially when you are looking for licenses. And we already have a system in place where you can register your businesses online. The other element that we think we need to address, and that I must say we have already we are addressing, is with respect to immigration. As we talk to you coming from Poland, of course, some of you might want to come here. We have ensured that it is going to be easy for you to acquire visas, and where necessary, if you set up a business here and you think you need some skills that are not locally available, we will ensure that the immigration regime allows you to do that, so that you are able to be competitive and also transfer skills to our people here in Botswana. And the other element that we are working on is to ensure that, as a lesson that we have learned from COVID, is that we must transfer almost all our services online, so that we social distance, and also ensure that we provide services speedily. So as part of that recovery plan that I'm talking about, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on online services, automating our activities, so that when you come here, you don't have to spend too much time meeting with authorities, doing paperwork, and everything is going to be online. So there's going to be a dedication and allocation of resources to that. And the last element, in the spirit of making it easy for you to start and operate in Botswana post-COVID-19, will be to ensure that the private sector or private investors participate in the provision of infrastructure, so that we just don't rely on government, but we give you a role, whether you're a domestic or foreign investor, to participate in development of infrastructure. It could be rail, it could be roads, it could be hotels, it could be hospitals, anything that speaks to infrastructure. We are going to experience a shift from relying on government funding to private funding, and also the promotion of triple Ps, or private public funding models. So we are going to ensure that that is what you get. And again, I take comfort from the fact that most of these elements that I'm talking about are going to be part of that recovery plan. And there's a lot of excitement and political will at the very highest level of government. So we see a lot of excitement as a business Botswana, as people promoting the ease of doing business, that indeed when you come here, we are indeed going to roll out the red carpet for you. So with that, Malebo, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for short and sweet remarks, bearing in mind the time constraints that we have. We are entering into the next session, which is on discussions, questions and answer. We have seen your chats, and I just wanted to reassure delegates that we will respond to the chats. If you are unable to do that in this meeting, certainly we will take it offline and continue to dialogue with you. I'd like to hand back to Ambassador Jan Wilinski to take us through the next session, which is really responding to any questions and answers that we may have from the panelists or from the delegates as they were. Ambassador Jan Wilinski.
Thank you. We are, in a very short session, questions and answers. I want to assure all the participants that their questions and inquiries will be passed over. We are going as a Polish Chamber of Commerce to organize another session online, but in the meantime, please record all your questions, which we will give to the Botswanian side, and also we ask the Botswanian participants, to give the question to the Polish side. In the meantime, I would like to ask on behalf of our partners, 2 questions. One question was about the development of the cities, infrastructure and real estate development in Botswana. How do you view it? Can you pass this question to somebody to answer?
Ambassador, come again.
The company is interested in a development of the cities in Botswana, infrastructure and real estate development. Do the cities have plans in accordance of which they are developing, as a community towns? Can you ask somebody from Botswanian side to answer this question? Another question, there are Polish companies who are very much interested in frozen fruits and vegetables. They are wondering what fruits and vegetables you are producing in Botswana.
Okay, maybe the last one. I saw a delegate from Bohoko. Maybe they could, if they're still on this platform, if they can respond to that last comment, and then I'll kindly request Reolibile to touch on the real estate one. Bohoko.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the question. In Botswana, mainly we grow the citrus, that is the oranges, and we grow the peaches and the mangoes. Those are the main fruits we do currently. But we are interested to do even others which we are normally not growing here in Botswana. Thank you.
Maybe also introduce Bohoko.
Thank you so much. Bohoko is a apex body for Horticulture Association. Its mandate is to lobby government, stakeholders such as financiers and insurances for the development of horticulture industry in Botswana. Currently, we are facilitating the establishment of the horticulture market because it has been a challenge for our producers to produce more, because the market is the one which stimulates the production. So we are currently establishing that market, and we are really interested to get an investor who can partner with us to establish this market. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Maybe, yeah, Era.
On the other question on infrastructure and real estate, there are 2 ways you can participate, particularly in real estate in Botswana. Firstly, you can come as a purely private company, secure your own land, which BITC is happy to facilitate, and develop housing or office blocks or industrial properties for your willing buyers in the private space. In other words, you have a lot of companies that will come and put block housing units to provide those as housing for people that they can capture in the market. Similarly, industrial warehousing, which is a space that we also as an entity play in. You find that as more companies come, it's in quite a short supply. So if you come in, we can partner you in terms of enabling you to develop those, as well as your general commercial, which is predominantly office space. But the main way of tapping into government infrastructure projects is usually by a tender. We have a unit called the PPADB, Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Board, who will occasionally list available government tenders for infrastructure on their website. And then companies that are interested at bidding can always come in and bid and try their luck. So for major infrastructure developments, you will find that that is the route that we normally take. But as I say, You can also come in purely private to develop housing units, office blocks, industrial parks, to be able to house, incoming businesses as they come.
Thank you, Rolibile. Ambassador Jan?
One more question. This time about the transport in Botswana. Are the lorries or cars in Botswana using alternative source of fuel like LNG, or you only use petrol?
Okay, I think I can take that. Currently, you'll find that most of the cars that we drive on the road, because they are German models, Japanese models, all sorts of models, they are already by fuel. But we haven't entrenched a logistical system for LNG. It is there actually in Namibia, but in Botswana, I think our main oil company is considering that. There's a company called Botswana Oil. So I think it is quite a great opportunity, because it's all about converting these cars to be able to fill up with LNG, but then also deploy the filling system where these cars can get to refill across the country. So it's one opportunity that we are alive to, but it hasn't taken off on the ground.
Thank you. Thank you.
I see a hand from Janusz. Can we call him to make his remark?
Yeah, okay, I will make the remark, but first I have the question. This is a pandemic question, maybe directed to Kels Olebile. The question is that we have 290 producers in Poland of disinfectant fluids. And just because of when the pandemic came, we started to increase our level of hygienics. And of course, this could be one of the items that we can either develop for investment, but first to try to export to Botswana. Several of our PCC chamber members are dealing with this, especially Boryszew Erk. They started the procedure to register these fluids in South Africa. I have two questions. What is your procedure to register this kind of fluids? Because this pandemics will last for long, and we will have to use it almost every day. And second question, similar to the first one, is that if somebody registers already this in South Africa, which is pretty difficult procedure, is it valid also for Botswana?
Okay, Lebo, I don't know if you want to answer that one.
I'm trying to see on the participants if our delegates from BOMRA are still online. Is there anybody on?
I think Kels should be the addressee of this one from Botswana, because that's a formal question between PCC and BITC. Okay, if not, there is not a problem. I will mark it. We will mark it, and we will try to post you with this, because that's pretty important.
You know what?
Then maybe Anush, what's okay?
Go ahead.
No. I was going to suggest to Mr. Janusz that is certainly as Botswana Investment and Trade Center, we can see how we can assist them to register with the Botswana Regulatory Unit, BOMRA. So I was saying that I was hoping that we will have a delegate still here on this platform, but it looks like they may have left earlier. This is from Ministry of Health. This is something that they would be in charge of, together with Botswana Bureau of Standards. We have been assisting companies in that regard. So I think it's a conversation that we can take offline and see how we can assist you.
Yeah, perfect. If my friend Reginald is still there on duty, I will find him to answer my questions. Okay.
Yes.
So can
Thank you.
I come to the closing remarks? Yeah.
No, let me just double check with Ambassador Bielinski. Is there anything else in terms of questions and comments that you wanted us to
Yes.
clarify before we?
Before Mr. President will make a closing remark. You know, I'm wondering what is the situation with COVID-19 as far as entering Botswana is concerned. You know, in Europe, we are slowly uplifting the restriction and people can travel within the European Union. How is the situation with Botswana? Do the people from South Africa may fly right now into Botswana, or still there are some restrictions?
Malebogo, I can answer this question if you don't mind.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, okay, we are jealous a little bit because they have in Botswana just a little bit more than 800 cases, yeah, infections. Just today, Poland suffered 680 cases. And the problem is with the truck drivers. They are just crossing the border between the South Africa and Botswana. The lockdown the president introduced is already over, but finally the final regulation is the real lockdown for 6 months. 6 months, so the schools are closed. The traveling is extremely difficult. There are plenty of hard conditions just imposed on society in Botswana. Some of them are really appreciated and supported by my wife and my mother-in-law. That means the forbidden sales of alcohol and cigarettes. That my family would love this kind of conditions and restrictions would be introduced to Poland. The pandemic is really coming everywhere, and in Botswana, it's really just as small as it could be. Only 2 deaths until yesterday, and I think the society in one of the most democratic African countries behave in the reasonable, responsible way. That was my Polish comment on Botswana, but if somebody wants to add something, yes, please.
Thank you, sir. I think you've covered everything. So in a nutshell, we are currently still having travel restrictions. People who are allowed to come in are those for essential services. But if, for example, those companies that are already operating in Botswana, if there's a requirement for them to bring in technicians that are not available in Botswana, and they need them for a very short period, there is a system in place where they could be assisted, obviously ensuring that the health protocols are in place. So definitely we currently now in Greater Gaborone, in a zone called Greater Gaborone under lockdown, because we're trying to make sure that we minimize the spread of this COVID-19. We, as Mr. Janusz has just said, really trying to minimize the numbers as much as we can, and obviously spearheaded by Our Excellency, the President of Botswana. I think we're doing not the best, but we're not doing too badly. Thank you. I think it's at this juncture that I can call Mr. Janusz to do our closing remarks, and just to assure all that all the presentations will be made available. All the comments and chats that have been written will be responded to in due course, as well as, if possible, I was talking to Ella offline that we would also want to do a specific business-to-business meeting where we try to join the people that have shown interest to talk to the Polish investor or to the Botswana. So that is something that we will work on very quickly after this. So
can I just make a quick comment, please, just to tag on to the question that was asked?
Emma.
I just wanted to confirm that just yesterday, the German government issued a list of countries that are designated as international risk areas. That means that people coming into Germany, and I presume would also be similar for Europe as a whole, who have spent some time in these areas would be required to have a mandatory 14-day quarantine. However, we find that Botswana is the only country in the SADC region that is not on that list. So it is currently recognized as a low risk area. We do have restrictions in terms of the number of airlines that can fly into Botswana, but where there is no, where we are not under lockdown, there has been opportunity for people to travel into Botswana. And I just wanted to support that, as Malebogo says, because when we open up, it's good to know the situation in both directions, that when we do open up, it is possible to come through in certain circumstances, but even more importantly, if you are a business person in Poland, if you were able to go there, then coming back should be no problem either, because the requirement for quarantine would not be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellent, for that. So, Mr. Janusz Wisniewski,
one moment.
I hope I've said it. Oh, okay, sorry.
You know, I would like to ask you to give the floor to His Excellency, the former ambassador of Botswana to Poland, Mr. Lamek, who wants to comment on our business.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak, and a very good day to you, Your Excellency, Maskhwa Masire Mwamba, my former chief as well, and Ambassador Januszki. Mine was just to find out as to whether the Go Africa program is still on the table, because I know that it assisted many African countries in the development of their economies. I know that at some point in time in East Africa, this program was very fundamental in changing the agricultural platform in Ethiopia, for example. So if so, is it still available for countries like ours, so that moving forward in these difficult times could take advantage of that? I also take cognizance of the fact that Poland is number 5 when it comes to education. I know that we've got a few students that are attending universities in Poland. If that could also be, increased in terms of intake from Botswana, particularly on subjects in medicine as well as in engineering, where I believe that Poland is quite strong in. Those were my few comments. Thank you very much for giving me that little time. Thank you.
I would like to thank you all participants and give the floor to Mr. President Janusz Wisniewski for closing remarks. Once again, thank you for all your participation. Please, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Ms. Ambassador, I was honored to meet you just at the date when you presented your credentials to our president. So I'm crossing fingers for your missions in this part of Europe. And of course, we are not so happy that you are contacting us from Berlin. We do hope that sooner or later, the development of economic and diplomatic relations between Poland and Botswana will raise our country to the level of having an ambassador of Republic of Botswana here in Poland. 5 years ago, Polish Chamber of Commerce started to develop relations with Botswana. We were unlucky a little bit, you mentioned already, that we were visiting each other several times. I had the pleasure to head the trade mission of Polish Chamber of Commerce last year. And we were very happy that soon after, in October, even Qatar Airways opened the flights to Gaborone with the stopover in Johannesburg. So it could facilitate, really, we were happy. And suddenly the pandemic, coronavirus pandemic came, and all our plans and dreams were broken. But to do business together during these hard times, it's some kind of empathy. And we would like to extend this empathy to our friends and business partners from Botswana. And we do hope that even with such a means like today's webinar, virtual webinar, we can communicate each other. Nothing can really replace that face-to-face meeting. And we do hope that very soon we can continue our discussion, relation, and contacts with the direct meetings. I'm really happy to listen and to monitor whatever was happening during this webinar. There was more than 90 participants and 51 chats. All the chats will be gathered and will be answered. The contacts, the list will be put by our colleagues Ela and Agnieszka all together. In this way, we have to continue. With the understanding of both countries, we are very close. I think we know what are our strong fields and what we are missing and in which direction the development should be developed. Yeah, development should be directed. What is really missing is what Kel said, the double taxation avoidance agreement. This is something that we should start, and Your Excellency and all our BITC partners, please push to that direction. Polish Chamber of Commerce, with the help of Ministry of Economic Development, will do the same. This year we were celebrating that 100 years of diplomatic relation with Brazil, but we are still negotiating with them this double taxation avoidance agreement. So I think with Botswana we can make it faster and more efficient. We noted well that agriculture and the health sector is your priority. And this also comes in automotive. Of course, it comes because of the closed South African, which is #1 automotive market in Africa. But I think this is something which is our strong feature here in Poland. We should very soon try to establish another contacts in that way, and I do hope it will be even more efficient than this one. That was really great pleasure to listen to you and to participate in this webinar. Let me thank very much Malebo, Kunda, the fantastic moderating from outside. I really admire your office, especially the roof. This is absolutely great thing. Yeah. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador Bielinski. His Excellency is always supporting us with all our Polish Chamber of Commerce efforts in Africa. Thanks again. Ela and Agnieszka are always on duty. Thank you very much. And Danuta Sojka-Andrzejewska from Ministry of Economic Development, as you know, always supporting Polish Chamber of Commerce. I wish you all the best. I wish you stay healthy and in a good mood. And to all our friends from Botswana, we wish you also the diamond prices are going up like the gold is doing right now, beating the historical records. That was a great pleasure. All the best to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We are closing our meeting, hopefully for a next B2B meeting online, which will be more successful, gaining the experience from the present one. Good luck and see you again in the nearest future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mhm, tak.